What's up, everyone? Welcome to BoardToDev. We are hoping to Christ that we do not have any fucking technical issues. Sorry, this is a whole new setup, different type of streaming than what I'm used to, and I'm really just trying to make sure that we get like the perfect setup. And I think it's just gonna drive me insane, but we're gonna go with it, and we're gonna see how it is. So we are relying on you to let us know if things look good or not. Chris, how you doing?
I am fantastic. We are live and there doesn't seem to be any issues. So it's good that this show is not called Learn How to Avoid Technical Difficulties While Streaming. So
Yeah,
um,
that is true.
so
That
I'm
is,
ready.
yeah. I'm excited that that's
Yep.
not what it's called, because we would have failed at that 100%.
Yep. 100%.
So yeah, man. All right, let's do recap. We're gonna probably stay away from the iPad today. We don't need to show too much of anything. This is gonna be probably a little bit of a quicker episode, as we will be back on Sunday morning probably, to stream and talk, get a little bit more in depth. But we wanted to catch you up because we did have a very good podcast going, and it was very choppy, and I was able to cut some stuff from it, and it's going to go up as like a in between episode for the podcast, and maybe we'll put it on here. But we are live right now on Twitch and YouTube, so welcome everybody. So Chris, we started off. We were getting into the number of cards per deck. Yes.
Yeah, the previous full episode, we went through some of the game mechanics and played a demo round, or a couple of rounds, and we thought that it flowed really well. And so we started to get into how many cards in the entire deck, and of the deck, how many of each card type would be suffice for the entire game.
Yeah.
And we landed on what was that number that we decided on? Was it
So we landed on the dragons were going to do 20.
yeah.
And then everything else was basically 10. So 30, 40, 50, so 60 card deck. That's what we landed on. So
Perfect.
We still feel comfortable on that.
I think it's worth taking that and then play testing the game. I think in terms of the creative side of things, for those of you catching up on the cast, Jason is our kind of lead designer and artist on the game itself, and we did a sneak peek on some of the character dragons in the first episode, and over the past week or so, we've had more dragons come to light. So I think we're close to getting to the number where we can start like finalizing of those characters what we want to belong on each card. But I think when you're talking about a development of a game, and Jason, you can correct me, obviously, with unicorns and zombies, it doesn't need to be perfect, just like kind of a super scrappy prototype to test out the mechanics and the flow before you get into the actual details of what each card should look like.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I struggled a lot. I think that was part of the reason why unicorns and zombies took a long time to come out, was because it was like the first one, and I felt like I needed to be perfect. I felt like I needed to make sure that everything was like 100%. And then when I thought I was close, and I talked myself out of it, and then I didn't do the proper like promoting for it, and I didn't do the proper like play testing for it, and I thought that that's what it was, and it's like, yeah, the scrappier you are, the faster you'll get it out, is basically how that ends up working out, because you are scrappy, you don't give a shit, you just want like the cards to move. We are in a unique time right now, and so like actually getting together and like play testing it in IRL, in real life, might be a little bit more difficult than what we are normally used to. But I think we're gonna probably I don't know if I'm gonna do it on here. Maybe we will. I think maybe it's part of it, and maybe it's something that we do on Sunday. But we might have to just make cards with the names on them, right? And no imagery because we don't really need that. Make a private table on Tabletop Simulator, and then you and I can play through it on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's really kind of the only way that we. I mean, we like you and I guess could get together and like we have the blank cards. We could write it and just try it that way, and figure out how to stream it. But we could also do Tabletop Simulator too. You know.
Yeah. I think that's important, right? When you're making any game like this one, is you think in your head, and even after playing some like virtual rounds in the last podcast that were like, hey, like this is gonna work, but until you really physically see the cards and like some of the things that could happen that could fuck up the game or could make it like really interesting, that's where, you know, just like anything, like video games, right? Like that's why there's playtesters, right? To not only to flesh out some of the design flaws, but like the game mechanics themselves. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Is does this concept work? That's important. So I think we start with that and really kind of decide, as you said, where do we want to do it virtually, or how do we do that? Maybe we do a social distancing. We'll set up a camera, like stream it live, and you know, whatever. We'll figure something out, but we should air that for those who are interested.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I'm with you. I think we are. I think we are at that next step. I think we could probably get a little bit more into cards and card types really quick, just to kind of like recap. Make sure that it makes sense to us again. If you're down for that, we can do that.
I think we should just review just to make sure we're aligned.
Okay. So in this we have let's see. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the dragons. So we said we had 20. We're not doing any special characters on the dragon, right?
No, just straight up dragon.
It's just a dragon. That's it. The attack, these allow you to remove a dragon card from the stack, so we know what the basic structure of those cards need to be, right? Defense cards, these will allow you to block attacks and counter actions. That is the only piece that I think we need to go over a little bit more, which is like, what does that counter look like? Is it gonna be instantaneous, right?
Yeah. Well, I think when we listed out if you scroll down on the defense cards, I think that was up for debate, but we landed the plane on what defense cards do. Yeah. So I think there's hidden cards, and then there's cards defense. And then cards that can be played on your turn. But I don't think we played it. We decided on any instant cards.
Yeah, I think it's just like to keep it as simple as possible. The only one that I think that we actually had, but it wasn't like an instant card. It was just on a turn, which was the Dragon Fireball would be the closest thing that we have to an instant card. Because if you put a castle down and then I have my Fireball after you place that card, then I can place the Fireball, right?
Yeah.
So that's like I think that's like the closest thing that we have to really an instant card. Right, because everything else just, yeah,
I think everything else is played on your turn within the round.
Okay.
And again, like the concept is to make it as simplified as possible with some strategic elements.
Yeah.
But going back to our principles, I think once you start adding some like more instant cards or like things that are typically out of the opponent's or player's turn, it may get a little confusing. And I think through playtest, if we feel like we need to add that dynamic, we can. But for now, I think this is a good start.
Yeah. All right, let's see what else. So on our game mechanics, we're not doing each mat. We're not doing the mat has like unique abilities, right? Because that was too complicated.
Right. Yeah, and I think,
and then each player
the mat design, we kind of mapped it out, but a horizontal mat with 10 slots.
Yeah.
Right. And then three areas to place
defense cards.
Specific defense cards. Yeah.
Okay. And then under what we know so far was we draw 2 cards every turn. You start with 3. Your max hand size is 7. It's only one deck, so you're really just getting the one deck to play. And then once you run out of cards, you reshuffle the deck. The other thing I was going to ask is that you could do it where it could be two types of the game, right? Like one could be you shuffle the cards into the deck, right? So cards are out. No one has any more dragons. The draw pile's gone. It's all in the graveyard, right? And then the idea was that we would shuffle that back. Or you could also play it where once the draw pile is gone, that's the end of the game, and whoever has the most dragons wins.
Yeah. And I think that's where we test it again. Like how quickly after several games does someone physically win the game without having to reshuffle the deck? Is it too fast? Do you like, because that's the other thing too, is like, I think, you know, when do we want like an average time for somebody to win? What's like 45 minutes, 30 minutes? Is it 20 minutes? Like how, you know, that's the other thing we want to think about.
So I think it needs to be 15 to 30 minutes per game.
Okay.
But if you add more players, then I think it's 30 to 45. I don't think it goes over 45 because you just get fucking bored. And it's not like like I play Resident Evil 2, the board game. That shit can last like 45 minutes to like 3 hours. So we're not that complicated, right?
So I think we should put like an expectation for ourselves here is that we are aiming for between 15 and 30 minute average play time. And if we're finding ourselves constantly going over that, then we may need to think about like next steps on how do we improve that. But that's a good North Star for us.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, and again, too, like you said, this is going to be something where we have to play test that. Okay. Yeah, so all the okay, we also need to, just for production notes, right? We also need to talk about card backs. They're all the same back, right? Because if we're drawing them all,
Yep. And I know I'm getting ahead of ourselves, but you know, we get super excited about like, and we haven't decided how we're going to make this game, if we're going to go the Kickstarter route or whatever. But I think there should be some special freaking decks to the loyal people that have tuned in and follow this journey.
Yeah.
Some foil, some gloss, some sexiness,
some sweet
collector's edition.
Okay.
Oh, come on, man.
Uncut sheets.
100%. Yeah. So we're thinking ahead of ourselves, but we like to talk about the goodies too.
Yeah.
But yes, the card backs are all the same, and I know you and I were going back and forth a little bit off cast, but we were thinking about the aesthetics of the game, and I think this is what I had in my head, and I could be completely wrong. I know that I think simple is the better, but I'm getting since it is Dragons and Castles, like a medieval type of humorous vibe, right? And so like in my head I'm thinking, does that mean the card backs are like kind of wood backs with like the logo, like or is like a forest back or something that ties in the theme, going back to the days of dragons and castles and arrows. So
arrow.
That's what it's in my head right now.
Okay.
But I think that'd be kind of cool to have that type of vibe.
Okay. And then and the only reason why I wanted to talk about this right now is because as we start to mock these up for the virtual version of it or for like gameplay, obviously when you're doing it, there's some advantages to digital because you can make one card back image and apply that to every card, right? But when you're doing it physically, you literally just have white cards on the back, and then you just write in Sharpie on the front what the card is. But we can be a little bit more creative right now, being that we're trying to do it digital and see what we can do there. But I'm with you on that. I think it needs to have that kind of feeling to it. I do want to. I'm a little torn on what the front of the cards would look like.
Yeah.
I think the front of the cards, the great thing about this game is that we are keeping it pretty simple. So there's not really a need for like power and then like strength, weakness, you know what I mean? Like it's not all that. Like basically the only thing that we would have on it would be like a card type logo on the card in the front, so you knew what kind of card it was. And I know that you and I off cast had kind of talked a little bit about like why would we have like a card type logo, and I think it's just easier to denote that in your hand, and it's kind of like a classic like where do I find this on the card thing when you're dealing with cards, right? Plus, if you do an expansion, then you have like when you're sorting through them, if you do like NSFW and someone wants to play with their kids, you need to be able to spot that.
Right.
So I think the front of the cards are pretty simple.
Yeah, I think the dragons are the major artistic component of the game, so that should be highlighted pretty cleanly on the dragon cards. I think about other games out there like card games, and a lot of the art's wacky and a little bit out there, and so I think it's more about the play than anything, right?
Yeah. So let me ask you this: when you are, and this is because we are actually kind of getting to the point where this is needed, and it's kind of weird to me because we really haven't even been. I mean, we only have like 2 podcasts down, and we're like pretty stoked on getting ready to play test something. It's kind of like moves a little bit fast when you get used to it, when you look at a card game and when you buy a card game or you back a card game on the Kickstarter, what makes you come back to that game? Right?
Yeah. I think it goes back to the general principles of, when we first started talking about this particular game, it has to be quick to learn.
Okay. Let me write this down.
Yeah, it has to be quick to learn. Like, if I'm going to pick up a card game and I want to play with somebody, if they can't catch on within a handful of minutes, get the concept after maybe a sample round, you've lost, right? Like if your goal is to create some insane game with board pieces, and we can talk about all those types of games, right? And those games are great.
Yeah.
We actually enjoy those, and part of this podcast over time is we'll jump into the things that we really like too, some of the games. But when it comes to card games, it should be very simple.
Yeah.
Especially because it's not a deck building game. Secondly, like, I think my personal taste, I think we share very, very similar. The art's got to be a little quirky, a little weird, a little odd. I like, and we're talking about fantasy. Typically, when you think of dragons, it's like very like, Game of Thrones, or referencing Elder Scrolls, in the video game world. Like, ours is going to be super weird, like Shrek type of vibe, if you will.
Yeah.
So that draws me to the art too, like cool, funny art. It has to be also the ability to be strategic too. So if it's quick to learn, it's got to be strategic too, and it's got to be fun. And what I mean by fun is in the strategy, there's some thinking involved. You can piss off people. You could lose. So I think what we're creating here is, it's either chess or checkers of card games, and we're trying to make this more checkers.
Yeah.
With some chess elements.
Yeah, and so I think for me, like, one of the big things about like a card game that makes me come back to it is really, I like to play games that have a sense of like I know this, right? And by that I mean created by people that like there's a difference between a game created by people who legitimately have a passion for board games, and then there's a difference between, well, it's the same difference, but it's between people who have passion for board games and people who are just doing it to try to make money. We've talked about it many times. Like, it's not a money maker unless you have a massive army behind you. But I like to feel like, oh, I've almost played this before, but this is different. Does that make sense? So yeah. I think Exploding Kittens kind of does it very well. It's a simple deck. It's like 56 cards in the main deck, I think, and it's like, it almost gives me the feeling of war, right? It's almost like when you were bored and you took a pack of cards and you just decided to play war with your friend. It was like, turn the card over. Oh, I won. Like, turn the card. Oh, I won, right? But it takes it and adds like unique features to it, which I think is fantastic, right? Or you play Cards Against Humanity. That's a game that everyone fucking plays, right? But what about Cards Against Humanity makes it so epic, right? It's literally fucking Mad Libs just on cards, and that's what I think people don't pay attention to when you're looking at like what kind of games you like and what draws you into those games. I love Mad Libs. I've always loved Mad Libs, and when I played Cards Against Humanity for the first time, I was like, holy shit, this is just short story Mad Libs, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I get to pick what makes me laugh or what I think is the funniest. And so that's something that I look for in a game, and that's really huge on getting me to come back to that game, right? Or how did they present it on Kickstarter for me to back it?
Yeah. No, I think if we follow those stick to that as we're processing through this and getting it made, I think it's super important that we stick to that. It's, we're, as you said, we're not in this for the money, but we love to create something that hopefully everyone will continue to enjoy. And I think we're on the right track when it comes to creating something that meets all of that criteria. I think, the other thing that I think about too is like, what's the differentiator between this and the Exploding Kittens and the Unstable Unicorns, Bear versus Babies, Cards Against Humanity, and the multitude of other card games out there.
And the ones that are coming out.
Yeah, Unicorns and Zombies.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that obviously the gameplay is different, but like what separates it, and I think the play mat is a big standout.
Yeah.
And so if I was at a game con or convention, or just walk by a couple dudes that are playing, or a couple girls playing at a coffee shop, like that one horizontal mat, I think needs to really stand out, right? Like it's got like, what are you playing? And if you're looking at like what would draw interest if it was sitting on a shelf, that's something over time through this cast we'll decide on. What will draw interest on a Kickstarter campaign or a website through a video, and then what will draw interest live when you're walking by somebody or you see it. And Jason and I were we were talking about, so everyone knows, pre-COVID, we were gonna get into Warhammer. For those of you who don't know Warhammer, it's been around a long time, but it's pretty epic. It's something that takes a lot of time and investment in assembling models and painting, and it's not something you learn in 45 minutes, I'll tell you that, right? And we were excited about that, and part of the reason why I wanted to get into it, and Jason, I'll let you elaborate, is when you see somebody play it, you're like, fuck, this is epic. What is this?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this card game is nowhere near that, but again, we want to replicate that. If somebody walks by, what the hell are they playing? I want to play that, right? So I think, again, using that is not as an example of eye-catching when you see somebody playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that. I think that was kind of like I remember when we walked in to go look at like the Warhammer store, like you and I were just like, oh my god, it's Castle Grayskull, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, oh wow, this is fucking, and we bought it, we painted, we started painting everything, and then we were getting ready to like go play, yeah, we were putting it together. And then when we were like, okay, let's finish painting and then go play, then the country shut down. So that didn't work out too well. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it, right? Like, how do you get that attention from a card game?
Yeah, 100%. So I think we have some bullet points there, and like stick to when we create this, and it has to. The boxes have to be checked. Yeah,
and if we can use this as our guide, right? Is there anything else we want to like touch over? Because I feel like we will have a good amount to try to do on Sunday. But I wanted to see if there's anything else that we wanted to go over. To make sure that we're ready to go on Sunday with I don't know what we're gonna do. Maybe we'll do visuals or we'll do the tabletop simulator. I'm not really sure on that, but
yeah, I think we're ready. I think we need to start to get into it. Yeah. I do want to say I think it's important. Maybe as we said, this will be kind of a shorter cast, but I think it's important to talk about perhaps like things that we like to play or have inspired us at this point, in creating games. Is there one or two things in your childhood or currently now that has inspired you to create Unicorns and Zombies, and now, working on this game, and then the variety of other concepts that are obviously on the table that we're excited to share over time with things that, some working titles that we got, including a deck build game that we're super excited about and that's in progress. But what's inspired you, man? I think it'd be important from a creator lens to get people a little insight into like what we're thinking about.
Yeah, man. No, that's a great question. Like for me, the most important piece, for me for games, I think I've said it before, Monopoly was like a game that I'm like loved Monopoly, right? But in it kind of like Monopoly was the first time where I played something and I was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. Like if you do everything right, you 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 can end up owning everything. You could take over. People are getting upset at you, but you're really playing against the board as well, right? Like Monopoly lives when you play the game. It's living and it's playing as well, right? So, um, you know, if I think back to like what really inspired me, I for a period of time, I was going to like board game nights, and we were trying like a bunch of different games. We were trying like big, huge tabletop games, like other card building games, like some horror games. And I think the thing that really got me, and then we were doing a Dungeons and Dragons run, and that Dungeons and Dragons is my jam. I love that. It's fucking great. I really want to get a whole thing going again. But my biggest influence to me to date is Magic the Gathering. I'm not the best at it. I'm good. I'm not the best. I've never really done tournaments, but I have been playing it since '94. You know, I remember going into Target and you could pay $7 for a deck in Target of Magic the Gathering, and inside that fucking box is probably a Black Lotus. You know, and so I remember being able to like to just buy that, and like I would get dual lands, and I built black decks and had fucking Black Lotuses and like all these cards that now you look and you're like, Jesus Christ, these are so expensive. But I actually bought for visual purposes, and I know this is gonna be dumb on the podcast, but I actually bought an old school game that I remember having, and I found it on eBay, and I overpaid for it. I'm gonna go get it and show you. So hold on really quick if you want to talk about one that you had. I think
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah, definitely Magic. I didn't get into it as heavy. I think part of it is obviously just expenses for those Magic players. You understand the amount of money it takes to keep up and really build an awesome deck to either play with your friends or competitively. Dungeons and Dragons 100% is one of those games that definitely stands out to me as a game that, I'm glad that it's been brought back, and people are super excited. I think Stranger Things on Netflix definitely made that fucking popular again. So hopefully they're giving a kickback somehow with that. But I've always been a fan of like other different like strategic board games too, even like the classics. So like you said, Monopoly is definitely one that stands out. Is just an all-time classic, right? Like that's just huge. But even when I was a child, man, like growing up, like you had the video games, right? You had the Nintendos and the Segas, and I was super into that. But then like I appreciated all the other stupid games that still exist today, man. Sorry, and Double Trouble and Hungry Hippo, man, and
Dizzy Dinosaur.
Mousetrap. Dude, I mean, I still know the theme song, right? We watch a commercial, Dizzy Dinosaur. Like, come on, man, it just
spins around and a whole lot more. Yeah.
So those are the things, man, that inspire. But what do you have to show? What did you find, man? I'm excited too because I have no fucking clue what you bought,
dude. Okay, so quick history. Like you gotta know your history, right? Like back in the day, you had a lot of like it seems kind of like now, which is justifiable. But back in the day, you had Parker Brothers. You had Milton Bradley, you had Hasbro, and Hasbro wasn't really like a thing for a while. I mean, they were a thing, but they were doing like toys, right? And then I believe Milton Bradley acquired Parker Brothers, and then Hasbro acquired Milton Bradley. And I'm probably wrong on that, so fucking fact checker, come in, fact check us, update us later. But my love for comics is something that outdoes my love for board games, and I have too many comics. I had to stop buying them. But if it's something that says Marvel, DC, Image, anything like that, I'm like, oh, what is this shiny? Like, I want it. But I remember when I was younger. Let's see, when did this? I want to say. I don't know when this game actually came out. I just remember having this game and being like, holy shit, someone still had it. And I found a new one. How the fuck is it? Well,
the anticipation grows.
Yeah, this game was made under the Milton Bradley brand. But here is a picture of it. And for
that, man.
For those of you that are not on the visual, this is a Marvel Comics superhero card game. That is literally the title of the game. What I loved about this game is, if you remember, trying to play memory, right? First off, let's talk about the size of these cards.
Yeah, those are huge, man. What size are those?
Dude, these cards are like the they're called jumbo cards, but they
shit, man.
I can't remember. They're like two poker cards side by side.
They're about 2 pounds each. Looks like.
Yeah, and they're 2 pounds each. But this game,
I do like on the box it said 50 cents.
Yeah, and I paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't. Would you pay $1 for it? And I'm just fucking.
Yeah, and I paid like $30.
Yeah,
but I'll pay what I need to for classic games. I'm not above that. But what's great about this game is, man, it was everything I loved. It was Marvel. It was like going back to, like, you know, if you think about, and this kind of ties it back into what we were talking about simple to play. Like, there are some games that are coming out that are epic, right? Like, let's be honest. Like, some of them are fucking amazing, to be honest. But you have to spend at least a day or 2 hours if you're going to play the game just reading the game to figure out how it goes, right? And so when you think of like simplicity, like we talked about being able to sit down, like, this is the game, this is how it works. Dude, this is the directions to play. It's on one card. And the objective is to match and discard all your cards. Don't get caught by Doctor Doom. And let me tell you, the Doctor Doom card is scary. Look at that. That's like OG. Yeah. That's like OG Doctor Doom. But they also had like Radbacks, right? Very like simplistic, cool.
Yeah.
And so what you did is so one player chooses to be the dealer. Dealer mixes up the cards and deals them out, starting with the player to the left. The dealer they're dealt face down one at a time. Look at your cards, check to see, and then basically you're flipping over cards to match them with cards in your hand. But if you turn over Doom, you lose. That's it. And there are 39 cards in this deck, which means to print this game was more expensive because it was an odd number. And that's something that we'll also end up getting into a little bit later. But if you ever go to a printer and you want to do an odd number of cards, it typically costs more. And that doesn't make any sense, because when you get an uncut sheet back, there's a bunch of spots that are empty, and it didn't really cost them anything. So I don't know why they charge you more for odd numbers.
Yeah.
It makes
that's that and again, as you follow along on this cast, we hope to balance it with keeping you up to speed on what we're doing internally, hopefully providing you some insight into the steps to achieve a game. And then obviously we love pop culture, we love board games, and we like to talk about those things as well. So we're excited to get into more of the exciting part of development, which is jumping into more of the playtest realm.
Yeah, and I think maybe not this Sunday, but either the Sunday after the following one, we'll have a guest on. But we are still brand new to this version, and so I want to make sure that the visuals don't get fucked up. So
Yeah.
still working on that. But I do have somebody that's ready to go. We got to get him on there. It's actually probably going to be BJ. He's going to jump on and we could talk a little bit about like what's it like designing for card games or working with clients. Like what does that look like? Bring in kind of a perspective of like, if board game development is something you want to get into, and then also work with people to develop their games and help do that. Like what is it like to charge people for your time, right? BJ, I love BJ's story. Great friend of mine. Bummed that he can't do the art for us, but happy that he can't do it because he fucking took his passion and over, I think it was like maybe 3 years. And if BJ, if you're listening, I know you're gonna fucking kill me. But he has a podcast now that is fantastic and talks about it. But he basically churned his passion into what is now a 6-figure income for him. And that's something where when you look at people that get frustrated, like he talks about his journey, he would just be somebody that'd be really awesome to have on here because it does have to do with like board games. He does art, like that's what it is. He knows what's catchy, he knows what people want to buy, and I think that's a unique perspective that he could really bring. That's not something that I have. Like over time, like I've learned kind of the same story and the same idea. His podcast is Make Money with Your Art. Fucking simple title. But you should listen to that if you don't listen to it. But I'm excited to have him on. And then, we, as much as we want to talk about like development and stuff like that, I do think as we move forward, there's going to be a lot of repetitive stuff. So we're going to start slowly adding in like games that we're finding on Kickstarter to talk about those. But yeah, man, I think we're good. I think we're good right now. I mean, we're gonna be back at this on Sunday. So, yeah. Anything else? Anything you want to cover on Sunday maybe that we can let people know before we leave?
No, I think tune in on Sunday and we'll have something fun planned. But we appreciate all of you guys tuning in or listening via cast or YouTube or all the different social channels we're available on. Again, we're just getting started. We're just getting warmed up, and we're excited to continue to get things rolling, man. So thanks for joining the Friday night pop-up edition of BoardToDev. Yeah. And more exciting shit to come.
Yeah. I can't say it any better, so fuck it, and we'll see you guys on Sunday.
Yeah.